Mrs. Gilliam, how did it happen that you failed to file your preliminary expense report before the election?
Well, it was just an honest mistake. We were informed at the time that we picked up the materials, that when we filed our candidacy, that we did have to make an accounting of the expenses 10 days after the election. I realized that we had to make the preliminary report when a reporter called me yesterday and asked me if I had not filed. And I said no, because we have 10 days to file after the election is over. And then that's when I found out that we had to file a preliminary report.
Then you thought the only report you had to file was the final statement after the election. You weren't aware of the one before the election?
No.
The election board didn't make this clear to you or didn't point it out to you?
Well, they didn't at the time that I picked up the materials, but I couldn't say they did not because it's printed in the materials that I received.
We've just had one of the most informative exercises that we've ever had in this office. We had two groups of people working together, the Civil Air Patrol and our REACT tornado spotters working as communications people. And it worked out beautifully. The grade result that we came up with for the overall mission was 85.5%, which I think is tremendous in view of the fact that these two groups had never worked together with the Office of Civil Defense.
Well, first of all, you have to ask them if they really know what the space program can do, say, to help solve world hunger or pollution or some of the other problems that we're facing now. I don't really think that they know.
You know, the critics did not pay a whole lot of attention to the economics on the SST cancellation. What's your impression there?
Well, I think that the real significance of the SST is that the fact that this country is not able or unwilling to commit to long-range plans. And if you really look at it, the standard of living that we enjoy today is wholly based on preceding generation that has had some foresight and commitment to carry out long-range plans. And that if we don't make some long-range plans now for the problems of the future, we may arrive at those days, and the kids today who are worried about pollution, who are worried about world hunger, will find themselves with no tools to solve these problems.
These scouts around us, for instance?
Yes, these scouts around us.
There's a boy in Fort Worth, Texas, who wants to whip a man. There's only one thing wrong with this. I just don't think he can. You see, I'm the man he wants to whip. He can't do it, I'm sure. I'm going to knock Brentus out just about round 4.
All of you and all of us, it will be strictly non-political.
Well, they're fitting in more and in better ways today than they did, say, 5 years ago, but it's taken a massive awareness and group movement to achieve this. Right now, however, we're deeply concerned about the increasing numbers of persons in the retired age group, the earlier retirement, and the technological advances which are saying, we don't need you as a producer, we want you as a consumer.
Mr. Nash, what can be done to alleviate the problems of the older people in this country?
Well, several things. One is, of course, change the image of aging. The stereotype of the nice little old lady in the rocking chair has got to go. Our people are very active and they want to make contributions. So getting communities and organizations to be aware of this is number one. Number two, of course, is legislation where you can't do it by education. And number three, I think, is self-help. Organizations such as the American Association of Retired Persons, the National Retired Teachers Association, and others, providing the opportunities and creating the programs that utilize the skills of the older person. We're alarmed. I think that statistically, anyone stops and thinks for a moment, 2.5 times the medical services are required when you're older than when you're younger. Right now, even under the Medicare program, the older person is paying about $3 out of every $5 spent for medical services. On a fixed income, that becomes a threat to one's ability to continue to live with dignity and independence into later life. So we're very alarmed, and we're active in working with Congress, committees, state legislatures, and so forth, with private insurance industries. We ourselves have our own contracts with insurance firms that get special programs written at the best prices we can get. We have a drug service, a nonprofit drug service, for example, to assist our people who have to spend a lot of their fixed income on the medications and the medical supplies so that they can get it at a better price through our cooperative service.
It wasn't supposed to be a very interesting school board race, what with 4 incumbents up for election and campaign funds being low in both parties. But then the issues of the use of tax money and discipline in the classroom came up. Now CGS has a chance to take the majority membership away from the League for Educational Advancement in Dallas. I talked with CGS campaign chairman Vernon T. Randall about the runoff election April 24th between Joe Kervin and James Jennings.
Even without the majority, the people will see some changes. However, a great deal of what we wish to accomplish will not be accomplished if we cannot get James Jennings elected. The majority vote on the board, I think, will become very, very important. And without him, our programs, our desires for the people of Dallas, what we think the children need in the terms of leadership from the school board, simply will be much more difficult to accomplish.
Dr. Norman Kaplan, campaign chairman for Lead, credited CGS's win to false issues and a small voter turnout. He had this to say about Kervin's chances for winning the runoff.
Well, I should hope so. I hope that the voters of Dallas will sort of downplay Lead versus CGS and look at the qualifications of the two candidates. I think that Mr. Kervin is a outstanding man who's had a number of business accomplishments, who is accepted as a leader in his community, not just in the black community, but in the entire city of Dallas, who has served effectively for the last 6 months on the school board, and I think would continue the kind of reasonable progress that the board has made in the last 3 years.
The makeup of the members of this boardroom will be determined in 3 weeks with a runoff election between incumbent Joe Kervin and James Jennings. With the majority balance in question, the voters can be sure that neither party will let us forget it. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Judy Hanna.
All 3 places on the Fort Worth School Board up for election yesterday remain undecided today. All 3 places will need a runoff election April 17th to decide the winners. Place 5 runoff will pit Jack Turner against Mrs. Jack Shannon Jr. In place 6 it will be Stan Harrell versus Curtis Kirkpatrick, and in place 7 School Board Vice President Bill Elliott will face Mrs. Wilba Alleman. Only 14,600 voters went to the polls yesterday for the school board election. That's 4,000 below the predicted turnout. Elsewhere in Tarrant County, incumbents and unopposed candidates had an easy time of it in city elections and other school board contests. However, there was a turnabout in the cities of Bedford and Haltom City, which saw incumbents bite the dust or either will face runoffs later this month. We do urge you to vote in the other municipal elections. They'll be coming up next Tuesday. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
As you know, the fees right now start at $5,000 for the permit. However, it's divided into two installments of 2 years of $2,500 each. I tend to believe that they may be reasonable, but my subcommittee is going to study that a little closer. It may be high, depending on the overall tax aspect of it that has not been brought to face yet.
It's been indicated that there is somewhat of a rush to get this legislation through the House so that votes can be had in local counties. Why?
Well, of course, being from El Paso County, we've always been rather wet, to say the least. And we do have a great many private clubs in our area. And as you know, we're in competition, I say it that way, for tourists, in that we border New Mexico, who has liquor by the drink, and Mexico, who, well, there's no need to talk. They do have liquor by the drink also.